The Township Board meeting for March 11th, 2019. We've already done our call to order, Pledge of Allegiance, roll call, entered closed session, and have come out of closed session. The section we're into now is agenda additions. I have a couple of items to start out with. In the category of other, I would like to move number 5, DDA Treasurer resignation, to the informational section since no action is required by the board. Any comments on that?
Yeah, real quick. You indicate in your letter that Rosemary is going to be the treasurer.
Correct.
I don't have a hidden agenda here. Sometimes you think I do. But what is the western border of the DDA district? How deep does it go west? And does she live in that, whatever you...
She does not live in the district, but according to the DDA Act, a majority of board members must have an interest in property within the district. The remaining board members may be outside of the district.
So she fits that.
Correct.
All right. That's all. I just didn't want a treasurer that's not legal, so. Okay.
And she'll be appointed at the next meeting?
Correct.
Under superintendent's reports, I would like to add H for Old Orchard Park operations plan.
Was there a G?
Yes,
Under,
for reports, for action items.
Oh, action item.
Under consent agenda number 7, BSNA timesheets.
Number 7?
under
You're putting it under
G,
approval of
under
minutes.
reports. Not under approval of minutes, correct?
I'm sorry,
Under reports.
under reports.
Right, so,
G,
G then, okay.
BSNA timesheets.
And I guess I can speak to that real quick. It's more formal approval of bills because it exceeds the $2,000 limit. And we've talked about purchasing timesheets module in BSNA quite a bit in work sessions, budget work sessions. It was wrapped into the actual budget document for 2018. But Mr. Schaefer pointed out, we have never actually acted specifically on it since it exceeds the $2,000 limit. So that's what the intention there would be. Approval of the purchase.
But we're not. but why are we
Reports of the,
talking about it now?
on reports of the consent agenda, item G is BSNA.
Right.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes, I just want to make sure everyone's good with adding it. Do they have context for the addition?
Okay. Okay, so we'll talk about it in item G.
Very good.
No, because it's in consent agenda.
Did you have any more?
That is all I had.
Okay. Another one that I had is under ordinances and resolutions. To add item number 2 regarding previously passed code 19-01, which is in regards to beach and water sports equipment vending.
And I'm sorry, Dave, what was the, under the action items, H, what was that one you were adding?
Old Orchard Park operations report. Operations plan, I'm sorry, operations plan.
Okay, we have any further comments on the agenda? Then I make a motion, we approve the agenda with the noted changes.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Palmer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is passed. Now we're on to our first public comment period. During the public comment period, there's a 4-minute time limit. A card must be filled out and provided to the superintendent to speak at the first one. And when you come up to the podium, please introduce yourself. Do we have any cards?
We do. We have Arnie Larich, U.S. Congress hearing Wednesday, March 6th. Meeting with congressionals. And the Air Force DOD not sharing info and data.
Good evening. Ani Larich. I live in Oscoda, and I was invited a week ago, Friday, to go to visit with congressionals by a national PFAS contamination coalition. Aaron and I have been members for a couple of years now. It came from that June conference that Aaron attended, and then they formed a national coalition of community groups, the NOW group, the community RAB for Wordsmith, and about 20 other community groups around the country that represent Department of Defense and sites like Wolverine with Cody Angel and so forth. So they wanted us to be prepared to talk to congressionals across the country about what is impacting our communities. And so it was a mix of DOD and other sites, as I said. So it was a mix of representatives. The veterans group that is Wordsmith based and the NOW group, they could not send anyone. There was another couple that they tried to get. So I was down the list. And so I went. We met with about 8 to 12 congressionals, met with both senators, their staff, met with Kildee himself and his staff, and then Congressman Wahlberg from Michigan also. The rest of them were predominantly Republicans because they wanted us to educate and answer questions. So that's these were set up by them. By them means the environmental working group that paid our way, paid for most of us to attend in our hotel and trips. Just to be honest and open up front, we were not lobbying. We were just constituents talking to congressionals about the national problems. We also attended the hearing. And we also put together a list of questions, community-identified questions for the Department of Defense at the hearing. I've given a copy to your supervisor. The first one is the nature of the contamination, what obstacles to the Department of Defense. So I gave a state document where the Auditor General of the state identified the length of time since 2010-11 that Wordsmith and the team here has been dealing with this and some of the obstacles. Drinking water supplies was another one. Compliance with state standards. We know that the Air Force does not want to comply with state standards, and they've even used sovereign immunity as a reason for that. So I wanted to make sure congressionals heard about that. The next thing was jobs related. I don't know if you remember, but Gary Kellen gave me a 2-page to bring down to the testimony last fall, and it has to do with indemnification protection so that Coletta or any other business could get investors to be interested in supporting in redevelopment and expansions. And the Air Force is not listening too well to them, so I brought this up and I gave them a copy of Gary's explanation of those issues. The next thing I did was I gathered from our veterans and civilians water action group that represents the wordsmith members, and I have about 30 to 40. And the last thing I did was I sat right behind the Deputy Secretary of Defense before she gave her testimony. And then after she finished, I stood up, introduced myself, and because she said that she's asking for $2 billion more money, finally. But I said for the last and for the future, the BRAC site manager has not asked for any increase. So where is the money? Why haven't we been getting it? So that's just a nutshell of what I did down there. So if you have any questions, well,
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
There's going to be a new Secretary of the Air Force.
that's right. That just happened, went out in the news 2 days ago, and that's interesting that it happened. in
Do you
time.
envision that this will make a difference?
No, I think of it as a hindrance because she's been in there for a few years, and if that extra money is going to be in the budget, we don't know yet,
Mhm.
$2 billion. If it is,
Budget came out today.
I know,
Yeah.
but the details of it aren't there.
Okay.
I mean, they're talking about moving around $500 billion in this reform. And so we need people that have experience in those positions to implement with some experience. We don't need acting that are just there to listen to one story.
Right.
So I think, I look at it as a hindrance. I don't know if it's on purpose, but it's definitely less beneficial to us to bring people right before big decisions are made.
I think she's the first,
Female?
first appointment, military service appointment that the president made. So she's kind of the
Should be.
senior defense, secretary of whatever.
Of the Air Force, right. But she
But-
comes from academia.
Yeah.
The one the Sullivan, who is the Deputy Secretary of Defense, that you'll see in all the hearings, she's got a 38-year career with the Department of Defense.
Mhm.
She's sharp. She knows what she's doing.
Mhm.
But she's being told, just control the budget. That's the message that they're all getting.
Thanks for the update.
Thanks.
Any other cards?
Adrian MacArthur, money.
Good evening, Adrian MacArthur from MacArthur Construction. I came down looking for a check tonight for the project that we completed portions of in December, and I still haven't received a check yet.
In your mind, everything is all settled in that?
No, sir, nothing, no, there's much to do there, much to get through yet, but there is a payment due from what was completed and is uncontested. And I don't want this job to get any uglier than what it already has, but according to the contract, I'm entitled to interest. And it says all amounts not paid when due shall bear interest at the rate as allowed by law in that area. But I still owe people from that project, pipe, the labor, fuel, equipment, things of that nature. So, at a meeting 3 weeks ago, give or take a day, I was told I'd have it next day or two, just gotta stick it in the mail. Still don't have it.
Checks in the mail.
Checks in the mail.
No, that's not how it was conveyed at that meeting.
Okay, well, that's how I took it. So any thought on that, or shall I go take out a line of credit, or what am I to do?
We'll go over that during our payment of bills portion.
Okay, very well. And then the second thing is a question. I bid on another project down here and have not been able to receive any results as to what direction you were headed with that project.
We've not gotten that far.
Does that come later in the meeting?
It's not on our agenda.
Not on the agenda? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other cards?
We got Matt Kralzik as the water service bid.
I hate to be a broken record. I'm Matt from Cotterman Trucking. I was here for the same reason as the water main. I was told it was going to be awarded today. That's what we were told right from the get-go. I called last Thursday to check on the progress of it. Haven't heard anything. Just kind of here to take up with that. Had heard through the grapevine that I hadn't got it and that a higher bidder hadn't, so I was just hoping that that wasn't the case and wanted to learn why. It was like it was about a $40,000 difference. So maybe it's a non-issue. Maybe I did win it. Maybe somebody else did. But just kind of curious why. I guess we'll probably find out soon. Maybe. Hey. So. Any questions? It's not getting ordered today, or?
We don't have anything on our agenda regarding that, so it looks like it'll be at our next meeting.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
2 weeks, 2 weeks.
What's that?
We meet every 2 weeks, roughly.
Yeah, but
roughly.
in the article that was in the newspaper, it said
Yep.
it would be today.
The bids would be accepted
No, they
until
got
today.
accepted the
You know
first,
anything about that?
early last week,
Yeah.
and then we were told that that they would have to go back to the architect or engineer on it, and that it would be at today's meeting to be presented, and you guys would be awarding that.
I know the request for bids. I can't recall the exact wording off the top of my head right now. I could pull it up. It referenced that the intention was to award bids today. It wasn't necessarily a firm date. And now I can see where you would gather that we would be opening them
Yeah,
today.
especially driving an hour and a half to get here.
Certainly,
Nice to have a phone call.
certainly. And I certainly don't mean to play with words with you, but it was not. It was an intention to. That was, if everything went to plan, that was going to be the board's intention to award the bid that day. And we are still waiting on. I believe there's still internal work to do, or the engineer
Like I said,
to make a
it's sort of-
recommendation.
It's not justified or anything. I just, I come here to see what's happening. So.
Sure.
If
Yeah.
I'm gonna come back in 2 weeks. I'll come back in 2 weeks.
Sure, and I can tell you the job has not been awarded, so
Okay.
it would have to be rumor at this point. If
Sure.
you're hearing that a job has been awarded to somebody else, that's certainly
Okay,
not the case.
Sorry to bother you.
Any other cards?
No.
All right, now we're into the consent agenda. Any comments regarding the minutes of February 11th? Any comments regarding payment of bills for $48,794.21?
Yes. I do have questions on the board packet PDF, page 20, and it is related to the question, or the item that was added later in the agenda. It's the two BSNA items for a payment of $8,500 and $2,670. So I guess my initial question was, what are these for? But it sounds like they're for the timesheet system that is offered by BSNA. Is that what that is?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So, is there, I mean, I know we have another opportunity to talk about it, but where does that project stand right now?
It's completed.
Got it. Okay.
It was implemented last week on-site training with BSNA to roll out the implementation.
I see. Okay, got it. When did we get those invoices, these two here? Was that like earlier this month or end of last month? or something?
I don't know when those invoices are dated. Originally, I requested them at the end of 2018, early 2019,
Okay,
because I had hopes of, we had budgeted this project in 2018,
Right.
and going around back and forth with BSNA, they weren't able to implement until early first quarter of 2019.
right.
So I had hopes of booking them to 2018. So we may have received these invoices back in late December of 2018 or even early January of 19 with my intention of booking them to 2018. But then talking to the auditors, they said that they needed to be in 19. So if that
Their
answers your
auditors?
question. No, our auditors.
Our auditors?
Yeah, sorry.
Why was that? Why would that, what was that? I'm not aware of that conversation.
Yeah, so it was just a conversation between myself and the auditor. So the reason I had ambitions of booking them to 2018 is because that's the way they were budgeted. And if that was going to be the case that I had to budget them to 2019 because of the timeline of it all,
Right.
it was going to require a budget, an increase in appropriations in 2019. And I was looking to avoid that. I was looking to book them in the year that we had budgeted them as just a prepaid expense.
Right.
But then after conferring with the auditors, I didn't want to make an entry that was an error. They said that that would not be the best way to proceed. The best way to proceed would be to, because of the timeline of it all, to book it in 2019.
Oh, okay. All right, well, we'll get to that in a minute. So, who coded these invoices to Department 299, which is an unallocated
I
department?
did,
You did, okay.
correct.
Okay, well, I recall hearing you mention this project at maybe one or two work sessions. I heard you say earlier, as we were adding the item later on in the agenda, that you'd mentioned this or discussed this a number of times. I only remember a couple work sessions the last year or two. But I believe the project was proposed and supported only by a brief verbal narrative. I haven't received anything that was substantial, such as BSNA's sales glossy on what their service offering was, or a description of the capital project, or a list of the work that we were trying to complete, or even a firm project budget. And so, did you present these? And maybe I missed them, because I have missed a couple meetings over the...
Sure, those were all presented at a budget work session. It would have been in relative distant past of 2017.
I got it.
So that would have been, if I got my timeline here right. So in prepping for the budget of 2018, so probably November or so, or late to mid to late 2017 work session, budget work session, I presented those.
Okay.
I've got a file in my office to back, to show you what I presented.
No, fair enough, fair enough. So right now, my concern is around this one basic point about where the money has been allocated and where it isn't. So this board approved this project in 2018 for $10,000. But in 2019, everyone on this board approved a budget which did not contain this project at all. So what I don't understand is why we're looking at invoices today that were committed by this township for $11,170 without having previously discussed with us that this project was going on in any way, shape, or form for real, and that there's a budget variance that, on top of the fact we have no allocation. That's what I don't get.
Okay, so for the first half of it, from my standpoint,
Okay.
this board had been engaged in conversations that this project was
Right.
going to be commencing and was a for real project. It was going to be happening. And then I spent the entire part of 2018 working on that, and due to timelines and scheduling things for BSNA and my own due diligence, it got pushed into 2019. So to say that this board didn't know that this was a for real project, my assertion is that it did. Now, about the fact that it's jumped from the 2018 budget where it was appropriated into 2019, I see your point there, certainly. If this were to be paid, and I don't know without checking that specific line item in the moment, if that were to be paid, it could result in a variance. I don't know what kind of money's in that. I checked at the time, I'd like to think, and I can't tell you again right as I sit here right now what amount is in that line item, but it's not a guarantee that it would be a variance. It certainly could be.
I understand, yeah.
But it is going to, from being bumped from 2018 into 2019, is going to require an increase in appropriations, or at least an adjustment. And I've spoken with Mr. Schaefer about that. We've discussed this matter, and how booking it to 2018 to 2019 would affect appropriations.
Okay, right. Yeah, so that unallocated department is used for our license fee from BSNA in general. So there's already an allocation for that that's needed.
Correct.
But to the best of my knowledge, the allocation on that line item does not permit the new addition of this unanticipated expenditure that you placed there when you coded it for that department.
That's why we do budget adjustments all throughout the year.
Right, but here we have a problem that we don't do throughout the year. We normally don't do the expenditure on a project before it's actually been discussed and approved by the board. This project isn't approved this year.
It was
It's been
approved in
discussed,
last year's budget and got pushed to this year.
but it didn't get pushed. That's
did
the
get
point.
pushed.
It didn't, because if it did, it'd be in this year's budget. So how do you describe pushing it?
Because it didn't get accomplished in 2018.
That doesn't cause it to automatically move forward.
There's a lot of things that happens to, and it doesn't get included.
But not capital budgets. We
Yeah,
wouldn't be.
police cars, as a matter of fact.
I
We,
don't,
we have, yes, Tim.
In the-
We have allocated the money in 2018 and not gotten the vehicles till 2019 historically, and there's always budget adjustments for those.
That
And there's
didn't
lots of
hap-
other things
but
as
that didn't
well.
happen this year, did it? Because the purchase of equipment that we've made this year was actually accounted for in this year's budget. So I can't speak to
I
what
can't speak
occurred.
to that right at the moment, but historically, yes, that has happened, and it happens with other projects as well all the time.
Right, but this is where the concept of misappropriation of funds comes from, because we don't know what we're actually running with. That's not what the budget's for. The allocations are not something we do after we've already spent the money or in lieu of an approved budget. The reason why we have an approved budget is to actually understand and control where our expenditures are going, and even to understand where our income is. So I don't understand right now why we are where we are with this. I mean, I don't. I understand that the project was actually in progress, or that there was a discussion about this. I didn't know that the project was in progress because it's never come to a meeting like this or a work session that I was at where we talked about progress was being made. I don't remember any of that. This is new. So that's why I'm sitting here kind of going, how did we get here? I don't understand this one. This one surprises me. That's all.
Okay, and to be clear, we haven't paid the bill. I mean, I coded it to a line, and I have gone that far, I'll admit. We have not paid a bill, and in an effort to facilitate a discussion just as the one we're having here and to be open and transparent and very informative to all board members, we, this morning, when it was going forth to be paid, tried to be very proactive and pull it out and set it into the consent agenda so that this conversation, you would have an opportunity to share your concerns just as you are. That was the intention this morning. So the check has not been paid. We have not gone over budget. I have completed the project as discussed and planned in the 2017 work sessions, when the 2018 budget was approved, and other discussions from then to now. So yeah, I have completed the project as I communicated that I intended to and I believe was directed to by this board. Have not made the payment yet, have not exceeded the budget in any way. So what we're looking for,
Well, yeah, we did, because the budget was originally for 10,000 and it's 11,170.
no payments have been made. I mean, I
No, but I'm saying, but the obligation that we are under as a township exceeds what we originally budgeted, even just last year.
True, and I had discussions about that with the superintendent, whether it was Mr. Stalker or Mr. Schaefer, I do not recall. But this thing has gone through a lot of iterations, and when the increased bill for, and we can get into the reason for that additional bill right now if you'd like, but when that extra fee was added on to the project, I had discussions how it would impact the budget. And what may be happening here is maybe that we did not wrap this into the 2019 budget in November when we should have. So I don't think that the project was done in error or that an incorrect amount of expenses have been racked up. That could be my personal opinion, but that's what I believe to be the case. Our oversight may have been not putting into the 2019 budget as a continuation from the 2018 budget. But that's where we can remedy that with an appropriation adjustment and be none the worse for it, I believe. I mean, we have not exceeded the budget as it was enacted in November of 2018 for 2019, so.
Yeah, I think it was December, but fair enough. So, okay, got your point. So, all right, well, I don't know if there are any other comments about the bills or the check run here, so I don't want to make a motion yet regarding what to do with the rest of the check run. So, are there any other questions?
Well, I have a couple of questions on the checks, but just for my own clarification on this particular issue, we can't, and maybe you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but we can't approve paying this bill until an appropriation's been made
Correct.
to allow the money in the budget
That's
for
right.
this item.
That's right.
Is that correct?
My understanding is what we've been doing all along. It's
I
not
don't think
different.
so.
Well, otherwise, we'd be doing what we said we weren't going to do last year at our audit, when we weren't going to be spending the money before the allocations were made. Otherwise, we're just sending everything into negative and then trying to handle allocations later. We were told at this board more than once that we weren't going to do that anymore. So how would we avoid that? You're going to have to click override to write that check.
So you're not gonna
No,
need to,
you're not really gonna. You
click
won't have to
override.
click, you're not gonna click override.
that line item's got
You're
15,
talking about totally
almost-
two different things.
That line item has 15, almost $16,000 in it, so it would not require an override. Now, I see your point of that it would be potentially overriding what this board believes it appropriated money for.
Correct.
But it would not actually be overriding
In that case, no.
that line item in that budget.
Correct, in that case, no.
The budget would
Because you
not be
haven't overdrawn
broken
it.
or busted. Yes, we
You
would not
haven't
be
overdrawing it.
overdrawing any line items.
And that's why you do budget adjustments throughout the year to make sure that that doesn't happen.
And to be very clear, that has not even been attempted in this instance. That's why we sit here tonight discussing it. We are doing this correctly. We are coming to the board. Nobody's overridden this line item and is coming and asking for forgiveness later. It's under budget. We have not broken the budget.
Let's just be clear now that, what you're talking about as far as like hitting the override button and paying the bills, that doesn't happen any longer. That gets stopped if Jane enters it into the accounts payable system and there's nothing to pay the bill with. It gets taken back to Dave or to whomever the entity is that the checks are trying to be paid for. So, and they do not get entered into the system to be paid until that is taken care of.
So then what I said before isn't correct, because if there's money that's been appropriated to that line item, then we can pay that bill and approve it tonight. But then my understanding is that actually is taking money from something else
Right.
coming down the road, and then we would have to appropriate money
Yes.
for that instance.
The day this project got bumped from 2018 into 2019, we needed an appropriation in 2019, an appropriation adjustment.
Correct. And John has already discussed that with the superintendent.
Okay.
And so what would happen, okay, is the 16,000, I think the line has 16,000. Later on, we're gonna get a bill, I think BSNA is 13,000-ish on an annual basis, and so we would have to increase that to be able to then pay, I don't know exactly when we pay BSNA, but we'd have to increase that line item to be able to account for timesheets and then whatever the maintenance. So at a minimum, that would then be an adjustment of approximately $8,000 to $9,000 increase for 101, 299, 81, 820, 801.200.
Yes.
But your recommendation only just brings it to zero at that point. Now, at that point, if there was any other money in there for a set-aside or contingency, that's been wiped out.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Were there any other questions
For
on the
clear, I have
checks?
just a couple other, I don't think they'll be this involved. On page 17 of the PDF, it's a bill in the sewer fund, and it's described as depreciation expense.
For $96,000?
No, for $20 to Charter Communication.
I don't have the bills. in
That's
front of
me. That's me. You're gonna see appropriations adjustments at the end of the quarter. We did not put enough in utilities for sewer, and I had to move money from 968 to be able to pay a charter bill, but
I don't understand why it'd be listed as a depreciation expense. Typically, depreciation is just an accounting measure that you use.
yeah, it doesn't.
Probably just an error in coding or a transposition of numbers when entering would be my guess. I'm just speculating.
Yeah,
it's
usually a depreciate. You are correct. Usually, a depreciation expense is a large amount that is accounted for, say, at the end of the year. to
And
be
what I
able
was
to fund it.
guessing is it's the phone bill for Charter, because if you look at the water Charter, it's a similar amount, and it says telephone.
So is it the 2557? Is that the one you're talking about?
The $20.92.
Very
On
last
page
one,
17?
On page 17, under sewer. It says depreciation expense, Charter Communication. And I was just shocked to see something called, that you're paying a bill for depreciation expense. That isn't something that really exists.
No.
But my second, we'll go on from that. My second question is on page 20, under the unallocated, there's a payment to MICTV. It says for board meeting, and then it says programming donation.
That
And-
was already taken care of. I know that question was talked about at Friday's pre-board meeting.
Yeah.
I brought the bill to Aaron to look at. He called MICTV right there in front of me. He sent a new bill. However, when he sent the new bill, he added more things to the corrected bill, and I had to send it back to him to take that off, plus the donation, and he sent it corrected, and it's in the board packet correct.
Yeah,
So-
he
That
was
will be
under some
corrected.
misunderstanding
So-
as to the terminology for the bill, and
So I don't want any, if the public or anybody was to look at this and say,
Right.
well, the
Right.
township's donating money.
there is no
Yes.
donation.
It's not a
No,
donation.
It's
So
not
that,
a donation.
I don't know where he got that,
so
the
that
word donation was to be put in there,
Right.
but that's,
probably shouldn't be put in here.
Right, yeah, no, I'll have Jane correct that.
Okay, all right, that's it.
But the bill is corrected too, because that's what was on the bill.
Right, right.
Yeah.
all right, my question's related to the police fund 101-207. That is in the negative of $31,430.65.
I'm sorry, what page of the PDF?
Page 59.
So, jump in. I believe, and people can correct me if I'm wrong here, that was a holdover in the old bill coding.
I got you. 101-207.
Yeah, and that was a holdover in the old bill coding process. So obviously the fund numbers have changed to 207. If you ran this report today, or even after 311, those have been taken out. It was just an error in where they were coded to, and those expenses have been moved to the Fund 207.
Move to Fund 207?
Correct. Expense has been moved from 101 to 207. So that would now read 0, and the expense has been moved to 207. So the corresponding expense.
Understand.
Yeah, the Fund 207, I'm saying.
Because 207 is a new fund that we created, right?
Correct, yeah.
Right,
And
and
so we have-
eliminated 101, and people were still quoting to 101, 207.
Gotcha.
Okay, anything else regarding the payment of bills? My agenda was lacking some minutes in here, so we do have the minutes from February 21st, 2 of them on the 22nd, February 25th, 2 of them, and then February 27th. So in case anybody had any comments regarding those minutes. Anything regarding the report sections for the superintendent?
We didn't actually rule on the check run.
It's all wrapped together under the consent agenda.
Okay, all right.
Bill, I did see that one now on 17. I will have Jane change that too. That's the line expense.
I'm sorry, for
The line
which,
expense should have been a different number,
on which one?
the charter communication.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll
that
have
is-
her fix that as well.
Yeah, it's not a depreciation.
Right, no.
expense. Yeah, okay, all right.
I just, yeah, I was.
We do have, okay, so do we want to, are we on the superintendent report consent agenda yet?
Yes.
Okay, so in A, for the letter from Spicer to MacArthur Construction, we do have Rick Freeman here tonight from Rowe Engineering, and I was hoping he could give us kind of an update as far as the status.
That's not in his subject.
I'm sorry?
For Spice, the letter from Spicer to MacArthur is not in his subject.
Not in the subject.
Not in
Not,
Mr. Freeman's.
not relative to
Okay.
Mr. Freeman's.
He's on a different team.
Different team.
I do have a question about, not to switch gears to get ahead of ourselves, but about the sewer rate, the updated sewer rate study. What's the plan for the process of this for Mr. Umbach? Our sewer rate study, not relative to the historical rate study with Asavo, but just with, he seems to have tweaked it.
He did tweak it. And so you will not see as harsh, based on his three different, based on our last discussion for the work session, when Mr. Traciak came up, and I had some feedback for him on what he would call the test year. And based on modifications to that test year, he has provided that study adjustment for the sewer rates. What we want to be able to do is we'll be scheduling more work sessions. I was not able to attend the one associated with the water ordinance. We have sewer ordinance coming up as well. It's my understanding we didn't make it to that. And so when we talk about that sewer ordinance, we can also be doing relative to the rate study. Based on that rate study, I wanted to get that to the board to review based on follow-up from that previous discussion with Mr. Traciak. And he is now, you will see it in there. So it is no longer Umbach.
Oh.
I put his email in here. It's recently changed.
He mentioned that at the work session that they were in
Yeah,
the
they're
process of
changing.
the.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
It's not in there. His cover letter wasn't in there.
It's minor.
Yeah. I like that. I like the plan to talk about it at the work session. I think that works well.
It's all together
Yeah, yeah.
as far as the rates as well as what we want to change in the potential ordinance.
Sure. That's very good. I wanted to know if this was our opportunity to share feedback on the tweaks or not. I think it's much better suited for the work session, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss the boat.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments regarding the superintendent's reports section?
Just a question, and it's a small item. On the Planning Commission 2018 annual report, they have a roster of board members, and they include the Zoning Board of Appeals. At least that's what I have here. And just a question, at the bottom of that, Zoning Board of Appeals has Greg Schultz and has Jim Bigger alternate. Is that correct? Or should it be the other way around? Jim Bigger has been on the Zoning Board of Appeals for a number of years.
I believe that he has voluntarily switched to alternate.
Right.
All right, anything else? Then do we have a motion regarding the consent agenda?
Sure. So I move that we approve the consent agenda, excluding the two payments to BSNA and the Charter Communications payment recorded as a depreciation from this check run. And have Mr. Schaefer, Mr. Weed, Mr. Nardine look into why this incident regarding BSNA occurred and to report back to the board at our next meeting on March 25th with an analysis and recommendation so we can prevent this in the future.
About concerning the charter one?
Yeah, you wanted to change the number, I thought it was. It was a depreciation. We're not approving a depreciation.
Right, that's just, yeah. You want an analysis done on that?
I think she's, okay.
Nope,
Oh,
nope, just nope.
okay.
Just, those were the exceptions. You were saying we weren't gonna pay that, correct?
We'll pay it.
We'll pay it, but it
I'm
won't be a
just gonna-
depreciation.
Yeah, we're just gonna move it to the line item it's supposed to be.
Oh, got it, fine.
Yeah, we
I'll-
don't
I'll
post it
restate
until after we approve the bill, so we're
Not a
good to
problem.
change whatever we want to.
That's
So
fine. Not a
We'll be able to
problem.
rerun the report and take the donation out and that type of thing.
Fair enough. Then the only two exclusions are the ones for BSNA.
There's a motion by Mr. Cummings. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Palmer. A roll call?
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
No,
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. All right, subcommittee reports and project updates. We've cut through a whole lot of time here on a small portion of our agenda, so we have here in the first one, I think expediency might be necessary here for this information.
Sure.
The steering committee update.
We're gonna meet Thursday, the 28th, at 1:30 here in the library. I will be asking you, the board, at the next meeting on the 25th to schedule work sessions on April 11th and April 25th. Those are both Thursdays, 1:30 at the library, to make up for the first two steering committee strategic planning work sessions that were unfortunately canceled.
Can I clarify as to when that will now be scheduled? Is it still 1:30
At the library.
to 4, or are we expecting to maybe make it a little longer till 5? Like, how long were we expecting that to
One.
be if we're gonna catch up here?
1:30 to 3:30,
So we're not
2
gonna go
hours.
longer. Not gonna go longer, okay. Fine.
What's the date?
The 28th, isn't it?
Yeah, we have the
11th and the
28th, that
25th.
one has already been scheduled, and then the next meeting, I'm gonna ask you for the 11th and the 25th of April for work sessions.
Okay. Recap of the EMS meeting with Iosco County. So just real quick here, that meeting became very contentious. It went exactly how I thought it was, which was with a massive amount of resistance from the county. Who was present was Commissioner O'Farrell, Elite Schellenbarger, Scott Kernicki from MMR, Mike Eller from 911, Jeff Matthews, from previous commissioner who dealt a lot with the EMS service, myself, Kevin Beliveau, and Mr. Schaefer. And then there were some people in the audience. A few municipalities came later in the day, but otherwise they would have been there during that time. So yeah, it became contentious, and even though I presented data to them, they said they had not heard complaints. So I said, well, the data kind of speaks for itself, but they said they hadn't heard complaints. It ended with MMR is going to track some data over the next 3 months that they said that 911 wasn't able to track, which I don't understand why. And so about 4 months from now, we can expect a follow-up meeting and to see what that data looks like. But they're saying, if you just look at priority 1 calls, the time should be pretty good, so there's nothing to worry about. My concern is on the data chart that we had, it showed cardiac arrests at 37 minutes, showed breathing problems at 58 minutes. I've talked to other counties, not only in this state, but in other states, and they all agreed. They said normally they're not going to go beyond 20 minutes for any call. Occasionally it'll go up to 30 minutes, but anything beyond 30 minutes is unacceptable. But they did say that when they asked them questions about our service, they stated, oh, that's what you're going to get when you have a private contractor running your ambulance service rather than being a government-run service. So.
Doing transports, wasn't it?
Yeah, they're saying that the private services typically will put transports as a priority over other responses. And in discussion, I had a meeting with the Alcona County EMS service. And they made it clear that their priority are the residents before transports will be considered.
And just so you're clear, what they're gonna be tracking over the next 3 months are response times to priority ones. Priority ones meaning lights and sirens, and however fast they need to get there. And so we're gonna be looking at those priority one response times. And that is what, they're gonna carve out to be able to look at over the next 3 months. And MMR is gonna be performing that analysis.
All right, capital improvements, public hearing scheduled for Monday, April 1st.
7 PM, that's the planning commission meeting here at the library. We are going to be having, the CIP run through the planning commission to then come to the township board. And so what you'll see is we're already looking months ahead. Obviously, major purchases fluctuate between departments from year to year. Operating budgets typically don't fluctuate as much from year to year. So we are trying to nail down some of the major purchases for 2020, and we'll be coming to the board. And obviously, you're going to see that this aligns pretty closely with the previous capital improvements plan, and there will be modifications made to that. So the previous capital improvements plan was from 2018 to 2023, and this one will be from 2019 through 2024. So the current year and 5 years out, and that is in alignment with the MEDC's redevelopment ready communities certification evaluation criteria. So that process is a little bit different this year, that it's running through the planning commission, but ideally it would be approved by both the planning commission and the township board. And after that, after we're done with that in April, that brings us right into budgeting season in May. So that's kind of the place setter for serious budget talks that will be coming up after that.
Road and Sidewalk Committee meeting.
Okay, so based on discussions with the Road and Sidewalk Committee, we will be putting together the ballot language associated with a potential proposal that will be discussed with the township board as far as a road millage. I know discussions last year, there were discussions about a potential road millage, and it was decided that the township board would concentrate on the police millage in 18 and reconvene with the 2019 road millage. Now that road millage, the way that it's being discussed with the Road and Sidewalk Committee would include money spent on dust control, sidewalk maintenance and repair, as well as paving programs. And so various scenarios have been presented to the Road and Sidewalk Committee, and we will be meeting again in March to be able to come back in April with potential ballot language to be discussed by the Township Board. What I'm also going to be asking you next meeting is we have a fire equipment millage that could be renewed in the August election. And so again, that would require ballot language to be approved in April, so that it could be submitted in May for the August election. And so I will be asking you, as far as the previous millage committee was disbanded. And it was disbanded because the Road and Sidewalk Committee was going to tackle the issue associated with the road millage. But I'm going to need a committee of the Township Board to discuss the fire equipment renewal, the millage renewal, and that's currently 0.9 mil. And I'll be asking that we get that together as far as discussions for a subcommittee of the township board, and we can talk about that at the next meeting. But I just kind of want to plant the seed for that. I'm going to need a recommendation to bring back to the township board on how we want to pursue that, and obviously we want to bring the fire chief in on that conversation.
Okay, next one I have is for the RAB.
Yeah, actually, there's been some emails going back and forth between the Air Force and myself. They surveyed what the meeting date would be for the first week in April, and I'm sorry, I don't have that. Arnie, do you know what the date for the RAB meeting is going to be the first week?
Yes, but-
They haven't given it
No,
to me.
it's not the first. The training session is the 23rd, Tuesday.
Got it.
5:30, and the RAB is on the next day, 5:30.
23rd.
That's the official public RAB. Training is not open to the public.
Right.
It's training for the RAB.
Fair enough, so the training is the 23rd, and then the 24th would be the RAB meeting at 5:30 here in the library. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And supposedly there's going to be a visit by Secretary Henderson sometime between now and then.
That's right. Yeah, the visit from Secretary Defense Henderson is going to be sometime between now and then. I get your point. That's right. And we'll get more information on that. Hopefully the Air Force will get back to me tomorrow.
Does anybody have anything else for project updates? All right, then on to reports. Agreement between Township Board and DDA.
The DDA meeting on Friday, the 8th, the DDA was not able to pass the agreement. And there were not enough members to be able to vote, and we will be rescheduling a DDA meeting in the weeks to come. So because of that, I'm not going to ask the Township Board tonight to vote on this agreement until after it's been approved by the DDA Board. So you will be seeing this and this agreement at a later board meeting.
Any comments regarding that? All right, increase 2019 appropriations associated with Fund 101-299-971.
And again, you will see this after the, this is the specific line item, 101-299-971, land/building purchase. And what this would do, would pay off the remaining $88,000 of principal and approximately $2,000 in remaining interest to clear that outstanding obligation, and the agreement would then have the DDA board pay that back to the township over 3 years for $30,000 a year.
Any comments? Is there a motion?
I want to be clear that the repayment plan is at no interest, correct?
Correct.
So you're going to set a vote on the settlement here in this item, even though the DDA has not approved the basic contract?
You're gonna see these two items after the DDA board has approved.
Two together?
These two are,
Not
these,
tonight.
correct, these two are together. You're gonna see this exact same thing. If I come to you with appropriations adjustments, you can bet that this increase for 101-299-971.000 will be incorporated to the appropriations adjustments. That'll be in the first one. It's a known factor that we hope to make happen for 2019.
So no action on this one at this time? All right, proposed 2019 dust control RFP.
All right. The township typically contracts for annual dust control to be performed in May, as the first application again in July. Your packet contains the invitation to bid associated with the 2019 road dust control. Based on the proposed RFP, the township would be accepting bids until Friday, March 30th at noon. I will add that the Iosco County Road Commission will pay up to 33% of 2 applications. So we could then bill back for 2019 for 2 applications. Typically, historically, we've applied the treatments in May and again in July.
Comments? Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll move that we go ahead with the RFP for dust control for 2019.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Byer, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Automatic door replacements and service agreements.
All right, the automatic doors at both the Awney Medical Center and the library are not operational. The mechanical breakdown associated with these automatic doors has been an ongoing maintenance issue for the township. Your packet contains quotes from Stanley Access Technology to replace the automatic door openers, wireless push plates, and service box activators, the wireless receivers, as well as a 3-year service agreement after the 1-year warranty expires in 2020. So we would get 4 years of service associated. The net price of $11,720 for Awney Medical Center to be charged $236,271,980.000 for capital outlay would provide a service agreement through 2023 in an effort to eliminate ongoing maintenance issues. The net price for the library of $5,890, and those I give you the combination of line items to be able to charge. This was not a planned 2019 expenditure after we approved the budget. Undoubtedly, that's when the doors stopped opening in the library. So these are the 3 lines that we're cobbling together to be able to provide that. And again, this would be a service agreement through 2023 in an effort to eliminate ongoing maintenance issues. Based on our work session last Friday, I did reach out to Stanley. They would be happy to provide quotes for more doors, but the net price is not going to go down. That equipment is what it is, and the labor associated. We would get a similar type of price, but it's not going to be cheaper if we order more doors.
Good to know.
When was the last time these doors were replaced or repaired?
They're out here. Diana, the librarian, they're constantly having issues, and they seem to be having issues. The colder the weather gets, and the storms tend to cause mechanical issues on these doors, and so that's why these service agreements, historically we haven't incorporated that, and that's routine maintenance that they're coming out and replacing what needs to be replaced and consistently working on them preventatively instead of just calling them when they break, because undoubtedly they do.
So you'll be doing a budget amendment for these?
These are the lines we're cobbling together. So you will see 236 for capital outlay, 271,980. That's for the Fund 236 associated with Awney, and then I break it out for the price associated with 271 in the library.
Okay.
You'll see the first one is the contingency. We're wiping out that contingent. This is the contingency for 2019, and that's the bulk of that.
This is only for the doors at Awney.
And the library.
Right, yeah, I looked at that.
So the 11,000's for both buildings.
No, that's for Awney.
That's just Awney.
You know, I think the problem here is, Dave, in the packet, it says the net price of $5,890 for Awney.
I think that's a typo.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Library.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for the confusion there. Library fund, yep.
Okay.
And the service agreement is for labor only. Right?
Those parts are good for a year. So if they break within a year, they will replace those parts. If they break after a year, they'll come out and perform the service, but we're paying for the
We'll
parts.
pay for the parts.
And that is pretty much the end. We tried different places. They're not gonna cover those components for more than a year. These doors continuously break.
Well, I noticed in the proposal, there is an option for parts and labor service agreement.
Let's see here. I'm sorry, what page are you on?
Let me get to that. This is, on page 133. I don't know what the cost would be, because, like for Ani, of the,
Yeah, see, that's a box. They're not gonna check that box. It's labor only.
that's
Please
what's,
indicate the applicable contract coverage.
but there is a box above that that says parts and labor if we were to go. But,
They're not gonna check that. They're only gonna warranty the labor associated is what would be covered in that
Okay.
extended warranty. They're not gonna do the parts.
and for Ani, that's $3,600 out of the 11,000, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
No. The first year service fee, the parts. I'm sorry. The way I understand it, the 1,200 is basically $400 a year for the 3 years. So the components, you look at page 137. Single, 300. I'm sorry. We get to it. Interior, exterior.
I took that each year was gonna be $1,200.
You are, yeah. Because what they're doing in addendum F, if you look at 137 of the contract, each one of those doors, there are 2 interior and 2 exterior, and to be able to come out and do that maintenance is the $300. That's how they're quoting the $1,200.
And what I'm reading here is that they've baked that total amount, 3,600, into the 11,700, whatever it is. But according to this, we would pay it each year at $1,200. I mean, it's not going to cost us anymore. Just we'll pay it differently. We don't
Correct,
pay it
we'd
all
pay-
at one time.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear on how this is working. Okay.
Any other comments?
Would it be cheaper to put some other type of doors in there? In the long run?
Do we know?
What other type of door?
Well, like if you just have
This-
like something that has 1 or 2 doors that they can push the button and it opens for the people to come in for wheelchair accessibility, and there's just regular pull doors for the other ones that can be locked. Kind of like at the health park, you know, you can push the door, like one door there to open.
You're saying reduce the number of automatic doors?
Yeah, like the big, whatever, if there's such a problem. I don't know if the other ones are any better, but Just a thought. I
Well,
mean,
at
it's
the,
not-
at the work session last Friday, I was asked to go back to Stanley and say, well, if we wanna get this at Township Hall, what would it cost? And so the idea was to expand the number of, automated doors so that that could be incorporated into Township Hall.
But you said there wouldn't be any savings.
They'd be happy to give us a quote associated with that, but it's not like if we buy more, it's gonna get cheaper.
Not a bulk discount.
I was under the impression that they were gonna replace all the doors here too, like they're doing it on, 4 doors and 4 doors. But here they're only replacing 2 doors and, 3 push plates. So they're gonna keep the inside doors like they are and just repair the outside doors. I thought they were gonna do both here, just like on.
So there are 3 push plates here.
But they're gonna replace the 2 outside doors.
The doors are not gonna be replaced, the openers are.
It says right here, Stanley Magnet Force Automatic Low Energy Swing Door. So they're gonna replace the outside doors. And they're gonna replace all 4 doors at on. And this one is only 2. Well, I thought they were gonna replace all 8.
So you understand, these are not doors. It's the mechanical openers of the doors. So it will be the same doors, just the opening mechanism. And the push plates associated with opening the doors, but we're not getting new doors.
Are you ready for a motion? Please. I move that we approve the automatic door replacement and service agreements that have been discussed for the 2 buildings.
Support. Motion by Mr. Byer, support by Mr. Weed. Roll call.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Gasky,
No.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes,
Mr. Weed,
Yes, motion's passed. Replacement of garage door openers for the fire department.
All right, the fire department needs to upgrade the garage door openers to the current equipment, outlasting its useful life, as well as enhancing its ability to easily close the garage doors after equipment rolls out of the fire station. Your packet contains a narrative from the DPW supervisor, as well as the $6,073.65 quote for the replacement of 5 garage door openers, 7 button openers, and labor to be paid out of the Fire Department Equipment Fund 206-000-981.000 for Fire Department equipment replacement. This purchase of the equipment requires Township Board approval.
Comments?
I'll make a motion that we approve the replacement of the garage door openers for the fire department.
Support.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Byer. Roll call.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes,
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed,
Yes, motion's passed. 2019 Van Etten Lake Treatment Recommendation.
Okay. Van Etten Lake Association contracts on an annual basis to perform weed control applications. Your packet contains the recommendation letter from the Van Etten Lake Association Weed Committee Chair dated the 5th of March, 2019. The herbicide bid tabulation sheet, as well as an email explaining the process. Based on follow-up conversations with the weed committee chair, the plan to implement the recommendation of $78,600 bid will be confirmed prior to the meeting tonight. And you will see that the line item, this is paid out of the general fund 101-299-805.000, milfoil treatment. When we propose the budget adjustments, this will have to be increased. They don't do all of the applications at the same time. You'll see that line item right now is for $70,000 on an annual basis. That is what we typically budget for that. This is $78,600 for 2019 applications, and you will see that they're not doing applications right now, so you will see an increase for appropriations accordingly based on this bid.
Okay, any comments?
Well, just for clarification, this is paid for by an assessment on the lake owners. We're
We
assessed-
pay upfront and then we collect the money back.
Right, right. And I believe last year, and Doug probably correct me on this, but I think we only used about 35,000 or less than that for last year. It varies from year to year depending on what the situation with the weeds, and they've been improving. And we've used this company before, and they've done a good job. So,
Yeah, our recommendation is ELM did ours last year.
right.
They did a good job. We had to monitor them, which I did be looking into Lake Park. And we were the lowest bidder, so we recommended it.
Any other comments?
When's your assessment up? When is your assessment up?
The assessment, we probably got about 2 more years.
2 more years?
Yeah. That's 5 years.
I can't remember if it was 3 or 5.
But it gets billed each year. It's not like an ongoing for 5 years.
Oh.
That, yeah, the 5 years, just for the
For the actual assessment.
Assessment.
But yeah, but each year it's its own year.
Right.
For the actual physical assessment of the property.
Lake manager, Lake Pro, I believe they're in fact put together next year. And they will rebid for the lake manager separate. And applicators is every year.
All right, is there a motion?
I would move to approve the proposed 78,600 bid for weed control on Lake Van Etten.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Gieske. Roll call?
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Acceptance of $500,000 from DHD2.
Right. So this was a placeholder item on the agenda associated with the $500,000 awarded to the township by District Health Department number 2. So your packet contains the award letter as well as an email to District Health Department number 2 asking for clarification. So in that clarification, we heard back from District Health Department number 2, and Mr. LaForce is the finance administrator there at District Health Department number 2. He emailed back, he said, I received back from the state that the funding is intended for municipal hookup. And so they provided the contact information for the STAMIS legislative director, and we're trying to obtain clarification. This is different than, it's my understanding that this is different than the $580,000 awarded for the appropriation from the MEDC. And we are trying to obtain, money always comes with strings. And so we are trying to obtain further clarification on the specifics, and obviously the treasurer had a couple questions about what that means and what those strings are, and we're going to be working with the Mr. LaForce. But he gave that award letter. Typically, what we see from the MEDC is an actual grant agreement that we have to provide. That's what I thought we were going to be obtaining from the District Health Department number 2. But you will see that award letter, he does, he was able to provide that.
Any comments? Is there a motion?
I'll move to accept the $500,000 grant from the District Health Department number 2.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed.
May I ask a
Yes,
totally
go
brief
ahead.
question? That money, I know you're trying to determine what exactly it's for. I would be interested to know specifically if it would be eligible for service leads for anyone in the impacted area that's hooked up since the letters have gone out or would like to hook up.
Yeah.
Currently, we can only offer, that may, yeah, maybe you're already,
Yep, that's one of the items we went over, so.
very good, because I've heard from a couple residents, one in particular was quite, spent a lot of time with me, sharing her concerns, so I promised her I'd
Me too.
do my best to pass it on, so. That was it.
Old
There
Orchard
will
Park,
be more information to come.
Very good.
Old Orchard Park Operations Plan.
All right. So on an annual basis, the operation plans are submitted by the Parks and Rec manager. You will see on page number 6 there, the description of services for administration. There's now 3 full-time employees in there. And we went into detail, and the Parks and Rec administrator was able to attend on the Friday work session to go over some of the price adjustments associated out there at Old Orchard Park. Based on my research, the only time rates were changed in the recent past were for 2014. There was an increase for a modern site on a nightly basis, and that went from $22 to $25 in 2014. And again, we're proposing a $3 increase to $28 per night in modern. And then I provided a detail of all of the different price adjustments, and the Parks and Rec manager was able to provide comparisons. For example, if you look at a modern site at Harrisville State Park, it's $28 a night. So we're in line. We have not raised these rates in about a decade, and it's time. If you look at, say, 2009, 2010, the last time this has really been adjusted, we were spending $300,000 to $400,000 in the park on an annual basis. We're spending quite a bit more and appropriating money in Fund 509, and so to be able to account for those increased expenditures, we're proposing price adjustments for Old Orchard Park. If you take the total from 2018, if you went from 2018 to 2019 with the campsites that we, the rentals that we received in 2018 to 2019, you'd be talking about a difference of approximately $78,104 from 2018 to 2019 in potential revenue generation. So based on the comparisons and the lack of prior adjustments to the rates, you will see all of the rates detailed in the operations plan, and then accordingly in the hard copy spreadsheet that was provided.
Any comments?
I have one correction to make. I spoke to Mr. Apsis today. If you look at the first page of the operations plan for Old Orchard Park, that we're registered with Consumers Power. We've been authorized 525 sites. And he's broken that down between the modern camping and the primitive camping. Under the modern camping, it's at 290 sites, but if you look at the breakdown, if you add those numbers up, it comes to 303. So I spoke with Al earlier today, and we went through the numbers. All of them are correct, except he had counted in the Number 4, the 182 sites of transient campers, that should be 169 instead of 182. And then that puts the number correct at 525. So, and he was glad to see that before he submitted to consumers, because if they caught that, they would be calling him to ask, what are you trying to pull here? So, just to make that clarification. And the other question I was thinking about is that, we haven't, as he was telling us Friday, they haven't done a rate increase of much of anything for 10 years, or it's quite some time. So now we're looking at a 20% increase, which I think is deserved. I'm wondering if we shouldn't include something like we do in our contracts, where we just have an automatic 2% a year increase to cover the cost. I mean, if the employee is there, wages are going to increase 2% a year. Costs generally increase. Inflation's 2% a year. Why couldn't we just build that into our plan for coming years and automatically increase those rates 2% every year, so we're not hitting anybody with a big increase after a number of years? Just I know we won't do that now, but I mean, at some point we might want to look at some kind of a policy like that where it's just built in.
Sure.
Any other comments?
The 3 full-time employees, did that include Al?
Yes.
Do we have a motion? I make a motion, we approve the Old Orchard Park operations plan as presented, with the exception of the correction for the number of sites.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Palmer. Yes.
Do we need foot site specifically referenced, or is that non-issue?
No,
Very good.
this is Old Orchard operations plan.
Okay.
Roll call?
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Resolution and ordinances, amendment to zoning ordinance 165.
All right. So the zoning ordinance 165, the revision was read by the Planning Commission at the January 7th, 2019 meeting and voted on unanimously at the February 4th, 2019 public hearing. The amended ordinance section was sent to the county on February 6, 2019, and an approval was received from the county on February 18th, 2019. The revision adds assorted types of housing as special land uses to the F Forestry District, Section 4.20, and this requires Township Board approval.
Any comments?
Just what, like, I see where the things that they want to add, is this specific to a certain area that they have things in mind, like the west side of the township on 65, or was there any thought, something that they're looking at?
This would be in any area that's zoned forestry. And in forestry right now, the minimum requirement for a house is 5 acres. Anything that's smaller than that, then it reverts back and they have to come under the R1 district requirements for the housing.
So had somebody said, hey, would consider building condominiums here? I guess has somebody approached the planning commission saying, we're interested, but it's not,
There has been interest.
Okay.
No direct, nobody's come to the planning commission with a site plan, but
Right.
a realtor has talked to some people they're looking for some property to build on, and some of the areas they were looking at were zoned as forestry. So when we got looking at the forestry description, there's nothing in there for housing. So it seemed pretty obvious that we needed to add that. And after looking at it, I don't know, I missed it, but something that we talked about before we changed was the public Mr. Nordine talked about the publicly owned parks, parkways, and publicly owned outdoor recreation. We've moved that down to special use permit, so we probably need to do that here as well to conform with the rest of the ordinance, but that for another time and another day, I guess.
Bill, why would you, under special permit use, item C, want to have that even available as for sanitary landfills?
That's just been in there for years.
Let's open another bucket of worms for us.
Well, it's a special permit, so it would have to come before the planning commission for approval, and I don't know how we'd ever approve that.
I mean, why even have it in there?
We've
Well-
been taking some of these things out, but it's not to say that at some point it might, you know, I really don't have an answer for that question, but.
Now, if we remove sanitary landfills from this, doesn't that open them up to them being able to place them where they want? Don't we have to list these things in order to ensure that there is a restriction to where things can go?
Yeah, if it's listed, then they have to come before under special permit use, they would have to come before the planning commission. If it's in the permitted use, it still had to be permitted, but it could be done, the zoning administrator can do it on her own without coming to planning commission. That's the difference.
Or denied?
Or denied, yes. Or denied.
Yeah, because I think if you don't list something in here, then they'll have free reign to put it anywhere.
I see.
I know, that's how the law is.
That's a real gray area.
Forces you to have to be explicit.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve the amendments to zoning ordinance 165.
Support.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. For an addition, code 19-01, beach and water sports equipment vending. This code deals with leasing public park property for sports and water sports equipment. Today, it came to my attention that several details of this code need further review and consideration to ensure clarity, and that details of processes are addressed as needed, which have come into question by both staff and potential lessees. So in regards to that, I am recommending that any new activities related to Code 1901 be placed on hold until such time as the Planning Commission has been able to thoroughly scrub this ordinance or this code and make any needed modifications to prevent possible issues with use of public lands based on the intentions of this code. Any questions on it?
Can you elaborate on what it was that was encountered?
It was a little convoluted, but it seemed like there were a lot of questions asked of things that weren't identified in the writing of the code. Maybe in meetings they were, I don't know, but I think that this code needs to be looked at for additional details so that when a potential lessee comes up, they know exactly what to conform to, what their limitations are. So we don't end up with some obscurity or somebody who starts using more of the land than they need to, or, you know, we don't want it to be a hindrance to the public, but we also want it to help the public.
Right. Thank you.
And we have started on the Planning Commission Subcommittee working on this ordinance. Last Tuesday, we spent a good amount of time reviewing it. We made some changes. We're not finished with it, so we've got some more work to do on that, but I would agree. We could put a hold on that for the time being.
Will this affect the normal historic operations at Old Orchard Park?
No.
Okay.
That one's already been solidified and approved through Consumers Energy and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
Okay, so we'll still offer the same level of service at Old Orchard Park this upcoming season as we have in recent past. Okay. Very good.
Any other comments? Okay, then I make a motion. You want me to restate these words here?
No, as long as you can get someone to second it.
I'll make a motion to what I just recommended.
So moved, huh?
Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Other strategic work session dates for Thursday, April 11th, and Thursday, April 25th.
Both at 1:30 here at the library.
I'm good both days.
Yeah, I'm good.
Both those dates work for me.
Fine with me.
Anybody else? All right, I make a motion that we set strategic work sessions on April 11th, 2019, April 25th, 2019, both meetings at 1:30 PM at the Township Library.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call?
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Follow-up work sessions to review water and sewer ordinances on April 12th at 1:30 at the library.
All right, so this is a follow-up based on the previous work session that happened on the 27th of February. And so it was my understanding they got through a lot of the water. We still have water and we have sewer to get through. And so we want to be able to follow up on those conversations and get through these ordinances and work with Rowe Engineering to be able to get that feedback associated with these updated ordinances. So I'm proposing the 12th at 1:30 here at the library for a work session.
Once again, 2 hours.
2 hours.
That works for me.
Yep, works for me as well.
April 12th? Yes.
Good with me.
All right, I make a motion, we set a water and sewer ordinance work session, April 12th, 1:30 PM at the Township Library.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Work session, schedule a work session for ballot language associated with fire equipment millage.
I'd happy to sit on the committee for that.
I'm sorry?
I said I'd be happy to help on the subcommittee for that.
Are we looking for a subcommittee? Just scheduling a work session?
We don't have a millage committee anymore,
Okay.
and so for the road and sidewalk committee, I said, hey, you guys wanna do the fire equipment renewal millage? They said, well, I think that should be I don't think it's appropriate for that to come out of the road and sidewalk committee. So if we wanna schedule this at a work session, to make a recommendation to the township board, we do need language approved in April. So you're looking at the 8th and the 22nd for meetings of in April for township board meetings. So prior to that April 22nd, I need to be able to take a recommendation to the township board, very similar to what we're doing at the road and sidewalk committee, is we're going through different scenarios as far as, excuse me, what we will be accomplishing with these funds and how those scenarios look as far as the years proposed. And so I was hoping to be able to, I don't know if we need a subcommittee from the township board or if I can simply address this in an upcoming work session. I just need to be able to get feedback from the township board to bring a recommendation at an April township board meeting. And so I wanted to discuss with the board. It's not like the road and sidewalk committee where we are creating millage language from scratch. We are asking for a renewal with the 0.9. And I was hoping to be able to engage in a discussion how we would like to be able to proceed with getting this renewal language approved.
I'm willing to volunteer to be on a subcommittee for it also. So does the board want to have a subcommittee for this or discuss it at a work session?
Could we do it at the Friday work session on the 5th? After, say, at 10 o'clock?
Good?
I don't see where this is going to be a long, drawn-out procedure.
It doesn't seem that way, but for some reason, the meetings that seem they're going to be the simplest turn out to be the most difficult. But I'm up for that, having it after.
Maybe make sure that the fire chief is available also.
Yeah. So tentatively, I will ask Chief McGregor if he can be here on the 5th to discuss this.
And could we discuss it with the township attorney prior to that to get his input?
Yes, we have had some discussions on it. All right, I make a motion that we have a work session, 5th of April, 10 a.m. at the library to discuss fire millage.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call.
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Border review resignation. So as we discussed at the last meeting with Kathy Wooster Barth volunteering for the Planning Board of Commission, she is also going to resign from the Border Review. So I'm asking for the board to accept this resignation. Have any comments?
I would move to accept the resignation with thanks.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion is passed. All right, we're on to our second public comment period. The cards do not need to be filled out. There's still a 4-minute time limit, and when you come to the podium, please introduce yourself. Does anybody wish to speak?
Robert Tazier, Oscoda resident. I said I wasn't going to do this anymore, but I will. I'll make it short. I went on the Township website, mobile, and tried to bring up tonight's meeting. On Android, it doesn't come up. It's just not user-friendly at all. So when you go to the documents on demand and you pull it up, when you have a computer, it has a line bar that you can go on there and just click and follow. It doesn't work that way on an Android phone. So just for your bring that up. I couldn't bring up this meeting at all. And the second thing I want to talk about is the as a Lions Club president, I would just like to let people know that our site and hearing sweepstakes is going on in the township. These sweepstakes is one of our annual events. We get We actually get about $3,500 a year that we bring back into the township from these sweepstakes. So when you see the guys out there and the ladies out there with the yellow vests on selling raffle tickets for the sight and hearing sweepstakes, that's what we're doing. And just to be, I wanted to bring this one point up about that. For the last 10 years, Oscoda Lions Club sold more sight and hearing sweepstakes than any other club in the state of Michigan.
Well,
And not just by a little bit, almost double. So that's what our community does for us. But coming back over the years, over the last 10 years, we're talking about over $30,000 that brought back into this community by people buying these tickets. So that's my push tonight. Support the local Lions Club and buy your sight and hearing sweepstake tickets, and I have some right here. $10 a ticket. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak?
As the community co-chair of the RAB, I want to update you on some work items that we've been working on since the last RAB meeting in December. The first one involved the township and a FOIA request that I had submitted. I received the response to that FOIA, thank you, John, but learned quite a bit about what seems to be happening, but I don't want to assume the worst. So I just wanted to bring this up so that the public and the township, some of the trustees were not here for some of those discussions at an earlier meeting. Basically, the Air Force was required by the DEQ to add more sampling along the beach and from the Ratliff Park all the way down to the dam. And Bill shared his results with us on the January 28th meeting. He received a letter from the Air Force. I asked the township, I sent an email after that meeting for a copy of their results because I knew that there were 2 wells on the township property. And then at the meeting the following Monday, I asked verbally for the test results. Well, the township didn't receive a letter from the Air Force. So that was a FOIA request, basically. So David forwarded that to the Air Force. And within a day, 2 days, the results were received. The results were 3 times higher in the plume than on Bill's property. But the point is that the Air Force, for some reason, maybe it was just an oversight, clerical, maybe. But even with that, there's still a transparency and sharing of timely data and information not coming from the Air Force, nor to a certain extent from the DEQ. So that's something that I've been working on. I've had conversations with the DEQ remediation director over the last 3 months, asking her to review their FOIA requirements so that they could share or let me know what they could share of the documents and when that they received from the Air Force. So that's something that I'm working on. I think it will be an update item that I'll add as the co-chair and community co-chair on the next meeting. If the township has some input they want to give me, that'd be great. Or suggest that maybe you add it to your own update, because it is a long-term issue that we need the information and we need it in a timely manner. And we means the community, the township, and so forth. The second issue was at the do not eat the fish and do not eat the deer now. At the last RAB meeting, I held up a handout, and actually anyone could take a copy of this sheet as they came in. And basically what it is the DEQ has been asking for, since 2014, for an ecological risk assessment of Clark's Marsh and other areas surrounding the base, off base. And it's basically to identify contamination risk to the wildlife, especially if it's wildlife that humans can consume or do consume, but also swimming too. So that includes swimming on the beach, skin and exposure and so forth. So that's the handout. It was not in the minutes of the meeting, so I requested it be added, and it's now an attachment in the final minutes. The point is they've been telling us they can't do it until some future phase of Superfund process. They did it in New Hampshire, I found out last fall, starting a year and a half ago. And I notified them of it and asked them why. And that's why I brought it up as a handout at the meeting. So they're not playing fair with us, and we need to know what it's all about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, then we're on to board comments. Does board members have anything?
I do. This is a general statement or on my part, but it specifically references discussion tonight regarding the BSNA topic, and just encouraging the board members to bring those things up on Friday. That's what those meetings are for. If they're not for improving efficiency and streamlining these meetings and keeping things of this nature from spilling over, then I don't know what those Friday morning meetings are for. I personally am willing to engage and discuss and improve on things. I'm willing to. I voted for the proposal tonight to do that, to bring it back to the board. And all I've ever said, and I hope all I've ever shown in my actions since joining this board, is a willingness to cooperate and collaborate. And I just implore board members to bring these things to me, other members of the staff, Friday or any time before the board meeting. Because if this was brought up on Friday, the thing we made a motion to work together and bring back, I could have had done for this meeting. And we just hope we could avoid future similar instances. Because if the intention is truly to cooperate effectively, make improvements, I don't believe this venue is the most conducive or appropriate method for effective and genuine communication. So I just, if there are concerns on the board members, I'm just sharing my openness. Please just come talk to me about it, and we can fix it before having a 45-minute discussion at a board meeting. I just don't think that's the most efficient use of all of our times.
Well, since I feel that the comment is directed more toward me, then I'll address it. So, as I said at the meeting on Friday morning, we didn't get the board packet until 7:30 p.m. I have no idea why it was so late. But unfortunately, my son and I, we were at a volleyball game at the high school, and we didn't finish until about 9:30. So when it came time for us to go to the meeting the next morning, I was pretty much walking in cold. So, and I made that statement at the meeting, you were there. So you know that I said.
I agree.
So, good, thank you. So then, but as far as transparency and all that goes, it's like, yeah, I don't deny that there's, that there's I don't think there's anything untoward, in the motivation or in what you're doing or what occurred. But what it concerns me is that we didn't follow a budget, and that is the reason why we have a budget, and that is what the Michigan law requires us to follow. It's like, that's what we're doing it for. It's simple accounting practices. So, et cetera, that's it.
Sure. I completely agree with you making the statement of walking in cold. I recognize the issue. I feel the same pull on Thursday nights. I mean, we all are under that difficulty. I agree with that, and I'm not disputing that statement. I'm not disputing your concern. I'm just encouraging more communication, and I, in reference to you, pointing out that this regards you. You feel like it regards you tonight, and I agree. It's a general. I was open by saying it's a general statement to all board members, because this isn't just based on this occurrence. Similar things throughout my time on the board. This one tonight,
Okay.
certainly your comments triggered this statement. So
Okay.
it's both. It's directed specifically and to the board in general. I just find time and time again, I'm shocked to find out concerns on a Monday night sitting behind this chair. When I would have been able to address many things from behind the chair in my office. Like, I don't know that these concerns are here until I'm hit with it, with the rest just right here. It floors me to constantly be finding out these fundamental and major concerns, when I'm available 40 hours a week, more than 40 hours a week to discuss these things, and I'm not just available, I'm willing and imploring people to come do it. And in my time in the clerk's office, it's been virtually non-existent, limited, very limited at best. And so it's just frustrating to me, for having a true desire to improve. I don't feel I'm given a genuine chance. It doesn't. It seems if the goal was actually improvement and efficiency, there are multiple other ways to do it than hitting me upside the head with it repeatedly at public board meetings at 7 o'clock on a Monday night.
Are you kidding? Is that how you actually feel?
I think that's a conversation that needs to be continued another time.
Sure. And that's the very thing I'm
All right,
welcoming.
so does anybody, board members have any other comments?
Regarding that, or?
Other stuff. I think that's something that,
I think this conversation's been
Needs to be.
effectively shut down and closed, so.
I don't want to open a can of worms. I really don't. But the gentleman from Hillman, that's a long ways to drive here. We haven't given him any kind of answer as far
No.
as. what
John
we-
did.
I would like to add, the comment was made that the check was being released to you guys in a couple days. Get paid.
understand,
comment was-
understand, and that's what I'm going to address. I got that on my list right here.
All right.
That was the question I wanted to raise is, in my memory, it was brought before the board to approve a partial payment. I thought we approved that some time ago. I missed the last meeting, but it was either in late January or February 11th that we approved that partial payment. That's been some time ago.
We approved it, and then it's got to go through the USDA. The USDA has to approve it, and the USDA has to transfer us funds, and then we use those funds they transfer us to pay the contractor.
Oh,
So this is
Okay.
So my
funded by the
question
USDA.
is, did we receive the funds from the USDA yet? Because the USDA at that meeting said that they were going to release the funds within about a week or so, a week after that meeting. And once we receive the funds, then we would issue the check. So, do you know?
I'd
if
have
we
to look and
received-
see.
Okay, so if you can, I don't know which one of you is gonna handle
It
that.
would be
but-
me, because I would have the checking. Or, you mean, Gabe's gonna be gone, so I guess it would be me.
So if you can let me know
Yep.
the status of that.
Why would you not tell him this, so the USDA facet of this plan? Maybe you have, I don't know. But,
Yeah, it was discussed at that.
No, they were at the meeting when they heard him say that.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, it was, I believe his words were tonight, tomorrow, Thursday, 3 weeks, this Thursday. So it was, they were.
May have been, I think it was if we received the money according to when he said, then we would have been able to issue the check the following week.
And we don't control the USDA, so if they're dragging feet,
That's what we're gonna find out.
okay? Thank you for coming here tonight
Yeah.
and staying the whole meeting.
All right, the MTA has an introduction to planning and zoning class coming up, May 16th in Grayling, May 23rd in White Cloud, and May 30th at Jackson. I would encourage that any board members of any board of the township to please attend that training if you haven't done so already, including any DDA members. Anybody have anything else? I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned.